Hey, sports cars fans, Ray from Philly here, and what I like to call another cool episode. This is episode number 10 for Sports Card Memories. I delve into all the fellow YouTubers' journeys into the history of their collecting. We start off with their past, then their present, and then move on to the future. This fellow YouTuber I've met in Atlantic City actually in 2022 at the National, and I've watched his videos for the past 2 years, and I really, really enjoy his videos. If you haven't noticed him, you probably know that he did a great series on the 100 graded baseball cards, and it was a great series. I highly recommend at the end of this interview, you go back and check out all of those 100 episodes if you haven't, and if you did, revisit them again because it was really, really cool. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring in as you guys probably already figured out by the pirate hat, we're bringing in iconic Al of iconic baseball. Al, how you doing, man?
I'm well, Ray, and I love the outfit. What an amazing ensemble you have going.
I thought you'd like it. It was, I've had this, just lying around. I was like, let me figure something out.
I'm honored. Thank you.
No, no problem. My pleasure. So yeah, what I was starting off in the beginning, we had talked before we started the show, just going through your whole history real quickly and talking about structure and the hobby, which is a really good thing. But at one time we all started in the beginning. So let's start with your journey as in the beginning, the past. How long ago did you get started? What what started you? Who started you? And we'll just take it from there.
Um, Thanks for having me, sir.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
love your channel. It's an honor to be on. My
Thank you.
collecting kind of started. I was probably like 8 years old, and the first packs I remember opening were '89 tops, the '89 tops packs that still had gum in them, by the way.
Yeah.
And, and so I consider myself one of the last of that generation that remembers gum and baseball cards, because
Yeah.
I remember 25 or 50-cent packs with gum in them. And I remember putting those '89 tops cards into 9 pocket pages and flipping through my pages and just loving it. And really tried to acquire Pirates. Andy Van Slyke was my favorite player at the time. And I loved those early '90s Pirates teams. It was, watching Orlando Merced at first base and Barry Bonds and Andy Van Slyke in the outfield and Doug Drabeck and Stan Belinda and all sorts of other guys. Those were some good Pirates teams. And so that was really, it got me into baseball at a young age. I was, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old during those years. And then watching the Atlanta Braves break our hearts in '92. And it's really been kind of a rough go of it since then. But yeah, it was just buying packs of cards. '89 tops was how it started. And then my brother, he's 3 years younger than I am, and he has his own channel now, High Pop Professor. But he started collecting as well. And then fast forward into the '90s, and now we're into inserts and everything. And my dad is now heavily into collecting Barry Bonds. We actually got him into collecting cards, not the other way around. Most people, their dad gets them into it. But no, we kind of pulled our dad into it. He was a collector of coins and all sorts of other things. And then so we pulled him into collecting with us. Once he saw us collecting, then he was like our, enabler. He was the one taking us to card shows and card shops, and then he got into it. So then it was just this evolution. And we made friends down the street that collected. So we get together with them and have these big trade sessions where we get our binders out on the floor and we'd orchestrate these huge trades. And then let's see, a buddy of mine, let's call him DG. His dad was this master Hall of Fame collector, and I had never seen anything like that before. When I walked into their house, and he had signed baseballs lining the wall, he had jerseys and bats hanging up, and we're talking pre-war players back then, which, at 12, 13, 14 years old, I had never heard of Lefty Grove, and I had never heard of Dizzy Dean. And he threw a glove to me, and I caught it, and he's like, yeah, that's Dizzy Dean's glove. And it was signed by Dizzy Dean. And I was like, oh my God, this is a whole nother level. And so I credit that experience as being maybe my introduction of, okay, there's more to this than just collecting the current players, with
Right.
current guys like Dave Justice or the guys that I was into back then.
Right.
That really opened my eyes. They're like, okay, this is a whole continuum of greatness that goes way back to the 1800s,
Right.
and that lit a fire under me. I was like, okay, I want to collect all the eras now. I really want to, look back into these older sets. And
Hmm.
so shortly after, I did like start looking at the what was it? Facebook? No, not Facebook yet. It was AOL.
Hmm. Yeah.
AOL had like a message board system before eBay, and so you could go on and find cards, and there was no grading yet, and
Hmm.
there was no eBay yet. So I was going on AOL forums and buying like my first T206 card, and I was going on and buying my first like pre-war
Wow.
stuff. Obviously, nothing was graded yet, and so I sought these things out and just started building up like somewhat of a Hall of Fame / pre-war / all-time great collection the best I could with the money
Right.
that I had from waiting on tables at the local diner
Right.
and
Right.
mowing lawns. It was
Right.
like basically I was a paper delivery boy. I was mowing some lawns, and I had a job waiting tables at the local diner. And so
Right.
between all those jobs, thankfully, I didn't have a lot of overhead. Like I didn't
Right.
have rent to pay. I didn't have to buy my own food. My parents were paying for my clothes and my daily expenses. So this money that was coming in from my jobs, I funneled a lot of that into my collection at that
Right.
time.
Right. Right.
And so thankfully, some of that stuff I was picking up were Mickey Mantle signed baseballs and stuff that actually did age well.
Right.
Not all of it did, but some of it. Um, so that brings us up to like high school, where I kind of kept collecting through college. I remember getting things sent to me while I was in college, here and there. I was kind of in the background, and then grad school, same thing, and then young adulthood. I moved to Chicago, same thing, and I'd get things sent to me, and keep them for the long-term collection. Um, and then it's something I was always doing in the background with this idea that I wanted a piece or something to represent all of the top 100 type players.
Right.
And then that list kind of formalized maybe 2018, somewhere
Mhm.
around there is when I really formalized that top 100 list and made it something that really I got serious about.
Right.
And then really started to really hone down the collection and formalize that. And then the pandemic happened in 2020. I found YouTube and then started realizing, hey, this would be a fun idea for a concept I could do for a channel
Yeah.
and get myself out there and just maybe people would enjoy watching
Right.
how I collect or
Right.
how my hobby ethos is. And then channel was born, and that brings you up to date.
Yeah. So touch base now on the present with this top 100 list, which I
Yeah,
found. I'm a big list guy. I mean, I
I
love
know.
lists. I mean, to me, it's like I don't know. I'm like a structured freak,
Right.
OCD or whatever. But how did you come up with the list? Like, what did you base it on? Was it on value or just favorite players? Because this
Um,
is an incredible list.
well, thanks. I tried to give it a lot of thought, and there's not one formula that I could say, oh, it's this plus this
Right.
minus this plus this. No, it comes down to numbers. So
Mhm.
what are the numbers this player was able to produce? Now that we have advanced metrics that we can compare eras like war,
War.
you can compare a guy's war from the pre-war era um, to a guy who played in the golden era to a guy who played in the modern era, and it still somewhat makes sense. Like
Yeah.
that is sort of an apples to apples comparison because
Right.
they correct for the era. They compare that player to their peers, and that comparison of that player to their peers in their time is compared to this player and their peers in their time. So
Right.
it's a way that you can fairly compare Ty Cobb to Rod Carew,
Right.
and then see, okay, well, Ty Cobb had significantly higher WAR than Rod Carew, so that says something. It says
Right.
something about their greatness.
Right.
And so I used metrics like WAR that we really haven't had access to until somewhat recently.
Hmm.
And so I think that makes it much easier to make a list like that now.
Right.
Whereas 20 years ago, I feel like the analytics, the data wasn't there to
Right.
make a fair comparison or do it in a way that makes sense.
Right.
So use war as kind of like a guiding light, a guiding principle. And then you decide, okay, now is this guy more iconic or less iconic than their war would indicate?
Right.
And so certain players, they're less iconic than their war would indicate. There are
Right.
guys like Phil Necro, for example. His war is like 90, 95. He's a very high war because
Yeah.
he was a compiler. And
Right.
so a guy like Phil Niekro, he's not ranked on my top 100 list because
Right.
I use my 30-year experience as a collector to tell me that Phil Niekro is not highly collected. He's just not. I mean,
Right.
and I don't feel like Phil Niekro is an essential member of my collection. You know,
Hmm.
I don't feel like I need a Phil Niekro card. Plenty of
Right.
other Hall of Fame collectors would want a Phil Niekro card, but for me, I found that there was a line somewhere around that 100 mark where there's only enough room in my hobby or in my enjoyment for about 100 players. So
Right.
I really tried to guardrail my collection with that kind of magical line of 100. And I view it as a continuum. There are players in the game right now who will be on that list. And a guy like Tom Glavine might drop off the list at some
Right.
point.
Right.
If Juan Soto or Bryce Harper, those guys get to a point where they're really overtaking guys like Tom Glavine, then I'll probably have to bump certain guys off the list. You know, it might take 5 or 6 more years, but
Right.
there will be guys that exit the list and new guys that come onto the list and kind of bump guys like Willie Stargell, which I
Right.
hate to say, but
So the list is going to be ever
yeah,
evolving
yeah,
throughout the time, obviously. So, right. So war's a good thing. War's people I've noticed that are really starting to use that. And I was never a sabermetric guy. I was always a traditional stats guy, but I'm really starting to like this war because it really delves into the whole completeness of the player.
right.
And if you're looking for, especially when you're doing a 100 ranking list, what better way, than to go by?
Yeah.
I agree. What better way than to go by war?
At
Because
least
this is going to
it's a
give you
guide,
everything.
a guide
Yeah,
rail. Yeah.
right. So I like the idea that it's going to be ever, evolving. So guys like Harper and Soto, and if Acuna stays healthy, and guys
Mhm.
like that will eventually down the road, uh, get into this top 100 list. So, and the videos explain to the people, what are you showing in the videos? It's you're showing a little bit of everything, that an autographed baseball, a card. So it was just a great concept. What do you, so if people haven't seen the videos yet, what are you showing in these videos?
It's just basically what I have for that particular subject. You know,
Right.
what I have for that particular player that I'm highlighting, and it's more just like showing my work. Why does
Right.
this player matter to me? Well, why is Yogi Berra someone that I feel is an essential figure in baseball that I certainly put into the top 100? And what did they accomplish? What did they do? Why do they matter? You can't just look at Jackie Robinson's numbers when
Right.
you're explaining why he matters. I
Yeah.
mean, he was a phenomenal player who put up great numbers, but
Right.
Jackie Robinson is much more iconic than his WAR. So,
Without a doubt. Yeah.
which is why he's ranked at number 12 and
Right.
maybe not down at number 43, where he probably his numbers would put him.
Right.
He's much more important than that, and he's
Right.
much more coveted in the hobby as well. So he's
Right.
got this hobby mojo that many players have that sort of tell you more than just what their numbers are.
Right. And yeah, I like that too, because it's not just the war. I
Yeah,
mean, obviously Jackie Robinson is an iconic player, and I absolutely agree, deserves to be a lot higher than in the 40s,
yeah.
because of collectability on a player like Jackie Robinson is just,
And then you also
off
have
the
to adjust the
charts.
numbers accordingly.
Yeah,
Jackie Robinson had a 10-year career, so you have
that
to
too.
believe that had Jackie Robinson had a 15-year career or a
Right.
16, 17-year career,
Right.
he would have probably had 100 WAR. He would have
Right.
been one of those elite upper tier
Yeah.
compilers. He would have had like Joe Morgan type of WAR numbers.
Right.
Uh, if he'd been afforded the ability to play 17 seasons or something like
Right.
that.
Now here's a good question. I'm sure you've noticed that the MLB has incorporated Negro League stats. So now
Mhm.
with Negro League players in there, is that going to change your list somewhat? Especially though a lot of these players don't have cards, but they have
Mhm.
maybe close to non-playing playing days cards. Like the Gibson has the 74 Lachlan, and
Yeah,
there's I think that 74 Lachlan set now is going to go crazy, because
probably.
that's going to be the closest cards that we have to their playing days. Is this going to change your list now? I'm really curious
It
now.
thankfully MLB had telegraphed this years ago that this was happening, and so when I was doing my research for these videos and going on Baseball Reference,
Right.
the numbers that they had in Baseball Reference were basically the numbers that MLB imported. So
Okay.
I had access to those numbers that the 372 career batting average for Josh
Right.
Gibson, and the OPS and the all
Slugging
time.
percentage.
Yeah. And so you look at those numbers, and basically what we have for Josh Gibson amounts to about 4 seasons by today's standards.
Right.
When you look at the at bats and the games played, we have
Right.
about 4 seasons worth of production for Josh Gibson. So what I did on my
Right.
Josh Gibson video, he's on the top 100. Obviously, I think he's at number 43, 41. So I extrapolated those 4 seasons basically of games, and put them forward as if we had 15 seasons of Josh
Right.
Gibson, and it's ridiculous. I mean,
Oh, it's
yeah,
it's off the charts.
yeah. And even
It,
the 162 game average that you calculate for Josh Gibson, it puts you at like 192 RBIs a season. I mean, it's insane. Like this guy would have been.
it's mythical. It really
Yeah,
is mythical. It's like, nah, it can't be, right? It's unbelievable. Some of
yeah,
the
and
stats.
by all accounts, the competition level at the Negro Leagues was comparable to the Major
Right.
League. So I think it's fantastic that they've imported these stats and at least given us a snapshot of what these guys were capable of. And so, yes, Josh Gibson is on my list. Satchel Paige is on my list because they're probably the 2 most known names from the Negro Leagues. And that at the end of the day, my list is the greatest and most iconic ball players.
Right.
They're the 2 that you think of when you think Negro Leagues. You think, okay, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson. Those are the 2 you think of.
Right.
Obviously, Oscar Charleston and Buck Leonard, and these guys, I mean, ability-wise, certainly deserve to be in the top 100, but they just aren't on the tip of most baseball fans' tongues in the way that Satchel or Josh Gibson are.
Maybe Cool Papa Bell, because just the name alone, Cool Papa.
Exactly.
Everybody's gonna know that name. So yeah, I really dig that. I think that's really cool. But especially with for a lot of people, the issue wasn't the talent level with the Negro Leagues, because they had a series back in the 30s and 40s where they played each other, and I think the Negro Leagues won a lot of the games against the Major League. So it wasn't a question of talent level. I think it was just a question of what you touched on earlier about the amount of plate appearances and stats and stuff, because they're kind of inconsistent and tough to find.
We're talking like 60 games a season of documented numbers, which again, it's a snapshot. It gives you an idea, a way to extrapolate if you want to.
Sure.
But it's not a complete picture.
Right. Okay, so now let's go into the future. Like, what are some of your objectives now? Now that you finished this 100.
Yeah.
what's in the future now? Is there anything else in the agenda like that? Maybe one by position or something like that, because I love lists.
I know you like kind of positional rankings too. You're a guy that has okay, who are my top 10 first basemen, or who are my top 10 second basemen. I love that stuff too.
Right.
And I'd make sure that my top 100 was true to that. That when I was ranking my top 100 players, you got to make sure that you can cross-reference all your top positional rankings as well. So how does that first base top 10 fit it in within that top 100? So you have to make sure there's no contradictions.
Right.
Okay. Well, you messed up your top second baseman because that wasn't consistent within your top 100 list.
Right.
So I had to make sure that the list was congruent with that. But I'd love to do a series where I do a video of the top 10 catchers of all time, or the top 10 right-handed pitchers of all time.
I think that would be great.
And I do one video maybe for each of those positions and break it down. And then maybe just show my best card of each player or something like that. And then just run through really quickly why I put this guy above this guy, above this guy, above this guy.
Right. Yeah. I think that would be a great idea. Do you have cards for all of those players, or is that something that's going to be a work in progress?
Pretty much. There's some positions that are deeper than others. So
right.
They're I'd say my second base, I had to cut it off at 7, like Charlie Gehringer. But then you have a cluster of Ryne Sandberg, Roberto Alomar, and Craig Biggio, who are very similar and from a similar era. And I feel if I put Roberto Alomar on, then I had to put Ryne Sandberg on. And if I put Ryne Sandberg on, then I'd have to put Craig Biggio on. So you have to draw a line somewhere when you're collecting the top 100. And for me, the line was just after Gehringer.
Right.
And that was number 7 all time.
Right.
So I have a different line with every position because not every position is the same depth of talent. But
That you're saying we say top 10, but there was an interesting show which they kind of brought back a few months ago called Prime Nine, which was the top
yeah,
9 players
on
at each
MLB Network.
position. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have all the recordings from 2010, and then they updated it
Hmm.
a few months ago with Bob Costas hosting at Prime Nine of post-war era,
Right.
when Major League segregated that, or when Jackie Robinson came in 47, they just started from there, which I thought
Hmm.
was a cool idea because in the first list it had Cobb and
Yep.
Mays in there. So now it's just from post-war 47, which is a cool idea. But 9 was a cool number, I thought, because it was 9 innings, 9
Yeah.
players, prime 9. So I was like, that's a cool idea. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. If I would totally look forward to seeing that, to see breakdown of each position. Like you did the overall, but now to break down in a position,
Hmm.
I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, that could be another project I could have fun
Yeah,
with.
yeah, definitely. So anything else in the horizon that you're thinking about doing collecting wise, or you feel like maybe you've kind of accomplished it all, or is there's always an
Yeah.
ever evolving thing?
My brother had a really good analogy that I really liked. If you picture your collection as like a Japanese garden, you have
Yeah,
like your bonsai trees, and it's a brilliant analogy. It's like, yeah, so you have your bonsai trees, and now you're at a point where you're just kind of trimming them. You're kind of trimming the things that maybe have some excess in a certain
it's a
area.
good analogy. Yeah,
So you're trimming that, and then something grows, and then you're trimming that. You're just kind of molding it into what you want as a
right,
collector. And so I think we're constantly trimming our bonsai trees and
right,
trying to make our collection the way we really want it to be. And
right.
so that's a process for me that'll probably go on forever.
Hmm.
And I might upgrade something here or trim something there. Like I sold a Mickey Mantle signed baseball last week, and also a Hank Aaron signed baseball last week because I had two. And I didn't need two Mantle balls, and I didn't need two Hank Aaron baseballs.
Right,
And so I actually sold my nicer one of each one because I knew that they were going to get more uh,
sure,
return. They're both beautiful, but um, I just wanted to raise some funds for the national, and
right.
they're sort of like, well, I have some excess there that I can trim, sell an extra of each one, and ended up getting some good funds that I can roll into the national.
So what are your, if you wanted to share now, if not, that's okay. What are your goals for the national? What are some of the things you're looking at?
I'm hoping to come away with a big time autograph this year.
Okay.
One of those, top of the budget autographs. I did that at the 2022 National, where I got my Jackie Robinson autograph
Oh my
that
God.
year. Again, but that was literally the only thing I bought that year.
Right.
So that might be something similar to what happens this year. I'm
Hmm.
looking to either get a Walter Johnson autograph this year, a Cy Young autograph, or a Grover Alexander. So one of those three, and they're all in the similar price point range. But
Mhm.
that might be the big item this year. I hope it is. I
Right.
hope I find a
Right.
nice example of any one of those three guys. It's not going to be more than one. You're going to have to hopefully get the one that looks right to me,
Right. Right.
and that'll
I,
probably be my big ad.
I liked how you touched on earlier. You were saying how you and your brother got your father into it, which
Yeah.
usually it's the other way around where the father gets it.
Yeah.
What has your father been doing collecting wise with baseball? What is he
Well,
collecting?
he recently retired. I think he retired toward the beginning of the pandemic, and so he's used this time where he's now retired
Hmm.
to start to methodically move along. He was basically a Barry Bonds super collector.
Right.
He had collected literally every Barry Bonds card, aside from the one of ones and all those. But
Right.
he had the PMGs, he had the essential credentials stuff, and he was buying them back in the '90s when you could pick up like an essential credential
Yeah.
box for like a couple $100.
Yep.
And that was well within his budget back then. And
Right.
now they've just gone so crazy that he looked around in 2020 and was like, okay, I'm retired now. I have time to do this. And so he's started going on all those real high dollar inserts, and he's kind of started with those. And now he's kind of trickling down and moving along the other ones. Now he has this great network of other collectors that he's, selling those
Right.
to and finding new homes for those. And he's having a
That's
great time
awesome.
doing it. So that's really
That's awesome.
inspirational to
Yeah.
me that like maybe someday when I'm 70 and I'm ready to sort of start to move my collection along to the next home or where they're going to be after me,
Right.
then that might be something I really enjoy in my retirement someday.
Right.
But
That's awesome.
but that, so he's not doing as much buying. What he's really more interested right now in buying is the really obscure error cards or
Right.
executive promos, things like
Right.
that. Like the rare cards that are numbered like XXXX out of XXXX. You know, like
Right.
those kind of really rare promo stuff is the stuff that he's holding,
Right.
because he truly does love it. Like he really does love the rare
That's fine.
error promo stuff, like the one-off stuff that you've never seen before.
Right.
So he has a whole binder of that stuff,
Right.
for Barry Bonds. And if there's one thing he's just going to keep forever, that's going to be
Right.
that binder.
Right. For you, what are some of your objectives card wise? Who are some of the cards that in your future 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 years down the
Mhm.
line that you don't have now? Like, so who are some of the cards of players that
Um,
you're looking to get?
I don't have anybody from the 1800s yet, so that's going to be something. I'm going to have to go back and try to find a Kid Nichols card, for example, or
Yeah.
a, a Cap
King
Anthony.
Kelly.
Yeah,
King
but
Kelly's nice.
the guys that are from the 1800s that are on my top 100 list are Cap Anson and Kid Nichols. So those are two, big 1800s pickups that are probably going to be like
Right.
one of each is probably going to be like, okay, the 2025 national might be getting my Kid Nichols card or something.
Right.
The
Right.
2026 national might be trying to get a Cap Anson that year.
Right.
Um, because you just have to stay within your means, got to stay
Right.
within your
Sure.
budget. So I'm good for like one big pickup a year.
Yeah, same here. That's cool. I really love that. I love your whole thought process. We were talking before we went on that, when you get in, and the best advice I give to people that are getting into vintage and things like that, or any kind of baseball card collecting, is to be structured, right? Because we all want everything, but man, if you're not structured, you're going to go down, like you say, so many rabbit holes, and then you're buying everything. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, we touched base on that, to be structured, and you got to like it too. When you don't want to say, well, this is a structured list, but I'm not really fond of this list. But you got to
Mhm.
like the list as well, so they go hand in hand. So I agree.
Yeah, I
You know,
think people say buy what you like all the time. Oh yeah, buy
right,
what you like, buy what you like, and that's
right,
great. But you have to really you have to deeply know what you like, and
right.
if you don't take some time to really think about that deeply, what do you like? What really truly does get you going as a
Yep,
collector,
yep,
and that's what you want to focus your efforts on.
right,
What truly does ignite that flame somewhere within you.
right,
And for me, it's like, yeah, these forming that list of the top 100 players, that really, yes, these are the guys that really matter,
right,
to
right.
me and to, I think, the history of baseball.
Right. Do you collect any raw cards, or you mostly graded? Everything is most.
That's one of my goals for this year is to, for my core collection, the top 100 type guys,
Mhm.
is by the end of this year, I hope to have my entire collection graded. And
Okay.
that
Does it
it's like
matter
about
if it's SGC or PSA, or it doesn't matter?
I'm not a fan of modern SGC slabs
Right.
just because the number is too prominent for me. I
I agree.
I have some pre-war stuff that's in old SGC slabs, and I love those. I love the
Yeah.
old SGC slabs. The number doesn't jump out at you as much.
Right.
So I generally tend to go PSA or old SGC, and
Right.
then I have with my relic cards and some other modern cards, I like in Beckett slabs too. So it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter to me. I just don't like the modern SGC.
Right. Yeah. Me neither. It's really.
Yeah, it's just too much. The number, is the only thing that I see when I look at them.
No. Okay. I think I know what the grade this is. Yeah, I totally agree. But no, this was great. I really appreciate you coming on to go through your history. And like I said, I really loved the 100 list that you did. And I'm looking forward to, if you're going to delve into do by position, because, I would love to see your thought process, and uh, what you feel is your top 10 in each position. But I have a funny feeling we're going to agree on
Yeah.
on it a lot, because I pretty much do the same kind of system that you're doing as well. So,
Mhm.
uh, but I really appreciate you coming on and spending this time with us, and then going through your journey from the past, present, and your future. So, um, I
It's been an
thank you.
honor.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can't believe 30 minutes just went by. I can't even like that's
Wow.
ridiculous.
I just looked at it, was like, that was a quick 29, 30 minutes, but no,
Yeah.
that, yeah,
I feel
but
like
I could talk all day about cards. So,
me too. And I wanted to get your thoughts on a lot of things. And yeah, it's like, okay, 30 minutes came and went.
yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, and you're going to the National, obviously, in Cleveland.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's going to be fun.
Are
Yeah.
you
So
going?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the heck I'm buying yet.
Yeah,
Because I mean, it's so hard to like not buy anything for that moment, and then you see
yeah,
great deals coming up. I'm like, I might not see this at the National at this price, and I'm like, I gotta buy it now, and it's just so hard to
yeah.
avoid.
It's so hard to go into the national with a focused list and stay with that list
And
because
you might have already bought it because you could
yeah.
at 2022. I bought the Roy Campanella rookie
Oh,
right
nice.
before it, and I was like, "Oh man, I can't turn down this price was just too sweet." I was like, "Ah, damn."
Yeah.
But
Sometimes you just have to, when you see it, sometimes you just have to buy it,
yeah, it's tough, but I appreciate you coming on and spending this time with us, telling us your whole journey, and make sure everybody, if you haven't checked out that top 100 list, do so because it's a really good, it's informative, it's educational, and you see a lot of cool stuff. So thanks. I appreciate it again, Al, for coming on, and
Thank you.
thank you very much. So till then,
Well,
guys, stay
let's do it
tuned for the
again.
next episode. Absolutely. We'll do this many times. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it. Like I always say, have fun with it, and we'll see you real soon. Take care.
Thanks, Ray.